Hello, Assalamu alaikum. This is a quick take on Sri Lankan economic crisis. So there has been a lot of talk going on regarding Sri Lanka, that Sri Lanka is on the brink of sovereign default. Though the central bank chief denied that allegation, and he said that they are working with the lenders to pay off their debt, but the truth is the country has moved into a deep economic crisis. And this is because of the increasing inflation, plunging foreign exchange reserves, and huge budget deficits. So that has caused this crisis. So if we look at the numbers of the country has huge budget deficit. The recent consumer price the consumer price index, the inflation number hit 14% in December. The country has huge debt, that is 110% of GDP, which is the public debt number, and of which the $7 billion amount has to be paid this year in the form of interest and principal repayment, while they have only less than $3 billion of foreign exchange reserve. So just think about how they can repay their $7 billion worth of obligation with less than $3 billion worth of foreign exchange reserve. And also they are a net importing country, so they have to pay the import bills as well. The revenues are a lot lower compared to the expenditure. In just 2021, their interest obligation amounted to 72% of the total revenues, and while the public sector salaries and the pensions come to 80%. So what caused this economic crisis? So let's revisit. One of the main reasons were very poor implementation of fiscal and monetary policies. So the tax rates were cut, so government revenue came down, and increasing government spending, and because of that the deficit financing became unsustainable. So when Rajapaksa was elected as president in 2019, to fulfill his election campaign promises, he abandoned the monetary and fiscal policy conditions imposed by the International Monetary Fund. So taxes were cut, interest rates were slashed down, VAT was cut by half. On the other hand, the government spending increased to 21% of the total GDP. So the deficit financing became unsustainable and unfeasible, which is one of the main reasons of current economic crisis. Another main reason is that the tourism industry got affected by the COVID. So the tourism industry represents 10% of the total gross domestic product of the country, and it was hit hard by the current coronavirus pandemic. So because of this tourism industry collapse, the country's income from foreign sources reduced, because the tourism industry is a significant sources of foreign exchange reserve for Sri Lanka. So the foreign exchange reserve reduced from $7.5 billion in 2019 to $2.8 billion in July last year. And because of that, the currency lost more than 8% of its value last year as well. On top of that, the government policies regarding banning pesticides and fertilizers and forcing farmers to go for organic production without any warning caused the agricultural sector very badly as well. Another reason is they have huge debts to foreign nations. So Sri Lanka has more than $80 billion worth of loan to foreign nations, of which they have loan to China worth of $5 billion, and in the last year they took another $1 billion worth of loan from the Beijing to solve their acute financial crisis. They have huge debt from other nations as well, like Japan and India. So because of that huge debt, especially those debts they owe that debt to foreign nations, they are having difficulty paying off their debts, because they have to pay off those debts from their foreign exchange earnings as well. And that foreign exchange revenue, the foreign exchange reserve, got hit hard by plunging workers' remittances as well. So Sri Lanka has a major source of foreign exchange reserve through workers' remittances, and these workers' remittances came down to a 10-year low number to $5.5 billion in 2021. So they are affected by the tourism industry, they are affected by the workers' remittances, so their foreign exchange reserve is coming down. On the other hand, they have huge foreign debt which they have to repay as principal and interest. So those are causing the country on the brink of debt default, and they are reluctant to work with the IMF as well, because the president do not want to work with the IMF to impose the conditions imposed by the IMF, because he think it's a threat to the sovereignty as well. So the takeaway is that finance is a very important function, not just for every person, but for countries and companies as well. And the basic principle is you have to earn more compared to what you spend, and you have to have some savings to weather difficult scenarios. When uncertainties comes in, you have some savings to weather those scenarios as well. When countries, companies and persons deny that basic principles on a sustainable basis, and especially for countries, the economic policies affect many people. It brings sorrow to a large number of people in the country, and that is a very difficult scenario. Sri Lanka has to implement some drastic measures to come out of this difficult scenario they are having now, and it is very important for the country to fine-tune their fiscal policies so that they can repay those debts, and they bring the country into a situation where the country can grow and people's living standards improves. So let's see how the economic policies are fine-tuned by the country's policymakers to come out of this difficult scenario. Thank you for watching the video. Stay safe. Thank you.